Sure. He's a guy that definitely has a little bit of funk to his swing. Maybe that's because of just the optics of the squatted position that he starts in, and he's got a kind of a sweeping leg kick. But us as being in the hitting department, don't really care about the optics, more care about the principles of the movement, and which he has really strong principles. A really good example was one of the first games that we saw him playing a Pirates uniform here at the FCL. There was a pitch that he had got up and in, and it looked like he was beat on it, and kind of was beat, but he's so strong and he's got such a good swing. The ball ended up just ballooning off his bat and hitting off the top of the right center field wall. So, the combination of strength and fluidity is one of his strengths. Certainly, he's a young athlete, and there definitely is going to take some time to smoothen some of it out a little bit, just as he can catch and because he's just a workhorse, right? And so you want to try to make the swing as efficient as possible. So from a workload standpoint, he can catch 120 and still hit 20. So as a young player, has not a lot of at-bats, probably par for the course.
Cool. As a catcher, he's got the other side of the game, so much work to do. How do you balance that with his hitting work that he has to do?
Sure. This, once again, he hasn't had a whole lot of playing time and experience as a pro just yet. A lot of this is going to be for Henry to figure out, right? And how he manages his body and how he stays healthy away from the field and how he just learns. And I can sit here and tell him all he wants about what to expect, but until you actually go through it and are that sore and having to figure out ways to hydrate and diet and vitamins and all and sleep, like some of these things, as much as we try to get out in front of them, you really just have to experience it. And I think that's kind of probably Henry's biggest growth opportunity is just the experience himself, and that's just by letting time kind of run a little bit. Certainly, we have to be mindful of Henry's personality. Henry is a absolute workhorse who you're going to have to rip him off the field and rip his jersey off for him not to get better. But once again, those are good problems, and I think you would much rather deal with that than the latter, right? Of trying to encourage guys to have to hit more or receive or block more. It's not going to be the problem with Henry. So once again, good problems.
This goes for everyone in that past draft class, not just Henry. But if this was a normal year or in the past, they would have spent short seasons somewhere or actually gotten some time here. Whenever you're looking at like a Lonnie White, a Braylon Bishop, or someone like that, preparing for that first season, how different is that preparation going into this than the past? Because they haven't done the season before.
I will say that the fact that of all of those high school players signing when they did sign is that they did get an opportunity to come into here and we ramped them up a little bit, and they did get a chance to play, I think, 10 to 15 games, give or take. So no, they didn't get a chance to necessarily have to go through the whole season, but they got a chance to go 3 weeks and go, holy crap, this is every day. And so they do get to wrap their head around it a little bit to say, okay, just exaggerate it a little bit along. Once again, there's no experience like the actual experience. But it's like you go to Baskin Robbins, you get a taste of the chocolate chip cookie dough. You don't necessarily need the whole bowl to have the taste of it. So I think that's similar in that regard, that they kind of know what they're getting into. No, it's not the whole ice cream scoop, but it's a little bit of it.
With G1 Bay last year and the power surge we saw, what was behind that? Was it just a matter of he ran into some in the second half, and is it sustainable? Is that something that can happen?
It's sustainable. I spoke about this earlier, is that where G1 had come from in Taiwan and the type of player that they probably had him to be was probably this speed contact guy, which he has those elements, but he also does have the power. So for a lot of athletes, tapping into that power isn't necessarily a swing thing, and it isn't necessarily a mechanical thing. It's a belief in oneself, and say like, hey, I'm not this little guy that this coach who I was 12 told me to be. I actually do have more impact. And Ichiro was the same way. And not to make the Asian comp, but you see players from that style who are really good at coordinative and hand-eye coordination. They can get to more pop if they want. But I think it starts with belief with G1 first. And a conversation that we've had recently is finding opportunities to swing for yourself. The guy throws you a 0-0 slider, he's coming back with a 1-0 heater, sell out and hit that ball out in front. A 2-0 count in which you got a pretty good read on this pitcher and you feel pretty good, it's okay to swing for yourself. Yeah. So just looking for opportunity to do that, and which I think he did this last season, I think will be a way forward for him, because I think he can always revert back to letting the ball get deep and putting the ball on the ground and moving it to the other side. So it'll be a work in progress, and it'll be kind of a fluid conversation to see how we get to more production.
Regarding hand-eye coordination, there's so many pitchers throwing faster. There's so much, more difficult spin in the game today. Is there a way that you can speed up the hitter's visual perception, per se, to match that and to keep pace with those increases on the other side?
Outstanding question. Yes, what we are trying to do in our organization is we're selling out to different training philosophies, different training measures, and different constraints. We are doing things with vision. We are challenging our players that the cage is going to be looking somewhat similar to what the field environment is going to require. Historically, in my career, my terrible career, we used to do a lot of underhand flips and feel good batting practice and tee work. But when you really sit down and think about that, that doesn't make much sense. If a guy's throwing 100 miles an hour to put a ball on a tee that's stationary, certainly there's a time and place for those types of training parameters. But typically speaking, we're really trying to match the game environment in our cage so that the guys feel as prepared as possible, so that once again the game resembles, or the training environment resembles the game. So a couple creative ways around those concepts.
Saw somebody had a tennis player serving the ball to, it was like a video on Twitter.
Yeah, I saw that.
You think about that type of extreme approach?
I don't know who has any. I don't know what coach in there has any good of a forehand, but no, I like the creativity in it, and certainly we don't discriminate against drills. If there's a small way to improve somebody, we'll do it for sure.
Whenever it goes to identification of something that a player might need to work on, like I know using Frazier as an example, a big part was, you gotta get your contact point up. How do you identify, areas that you want to work on, and how does approach maybe change now?
Good question.
To pose it to them.
Sure. There's some subjectivity just based on our experience as coaches, and then we try to pull in objectivity to either disprove or prove what our opinions are. But honestly, we really try to look at a really comprehensive look at what our players are doing and how they are productive or not. So we look at game time video, we look at batted ball data, we look at what decisions they're making, where the holes are at, and we try to identify what is the leading problem, attack that, and then kind of reverse engineer off of that. So it's a messy process. We don't always get it right, but I think trying to be open and trying to really kind of have a hodgepodge of ideas around what we think what the problems are, and then go to tackle. And then if that is the thing that helps, we know that was it. And if that wasn't, it's all right. We X that off, and we're closer to figuring out what the next solution is. So it's a very messy process. One that does not have a straight line towards production, but this is the business that we're in, and it's difficult but fun nonetheless. Keeps you on your toes for sure.
Jonny, with a solid of a year's